It's 5 o'clock. I think we will just give it another 2 minutes and begin. Meanwhile, I'd like to thank everyone who's joined in on a Sunday evening. It's great to see so many people who still want to stay in touch with the sport. Are itching to get back on the court. This clearly shows how much people want to play and know about the sport. So today is an interesting session. We want to take this time out that we are at home and see if we can work on badminton as a sport internally and learn the nitty-gritties of the sport while staying at home. So what better than to talk to the experts and learn from the experts. So every week we plan to touch upon a certain aspect of the sport. So far we've touched upon badminton injuries 2 weeks back, post which we spoke about the strategies used in badminton doubles. Today we are going to be talking and addressing the speed and power in badminton, right? Something very key, something that we tend to ignore at times because we think that we can't stretch our ability. That's the fastest I can move, or that's the maximum power that I can generate. So how do the professionals generate serves up to 400 kilometers per hour, right? So we'd like to talk about ask the experts about how they do this, what do they work on, how do they get to that level. So we'll just take another minute or two, and we'll just wait for the another 2 minutes to get the latecomers in, and so that they don't miss out on the session. Uh, the excuse is it's a Sunday, so you're allowed to be lazy. But so we'll just give them another minute, and we'll start off shortly. I hope everyone's staying at home, staying safe. The lockdown has been eased in many places. I still hope you're not venturing out. And if even you're playing, maybe it's within your compound and not outside. And there's a lot that can be done at home. There are a lot of drills that can be done at home. You can check out the Playo blog where the experts have been helping us come up with the drills. So there's no excuse for us to not play and not stay fit. It's just about the intent, and you guys being here on a Sunday evening clearly shows the intent for your love of badminton, right? Right, so we've given our latecomers a minute. I think we'll begin. So we'll be talking about speed and power and how to get to the best of your ability on the court and maybe even off the court, right? So today we have for the first time we have two speakers with us. We have Nigel, who is a singles player. His expertise is in singles badminton. He has been playing for the Maharashtra team for the past 10 years, has been very consistently on the team. And he's also in the year 2015, he won the bronze medal at the national games back then. He started at the age of 15 and has been playing badminton for close to 18 years now. So clearly an expert and a well-trained soul on the court. And our second speaker who's been here before with us is Nidhi Patel. She's a doubles expert. She started her career in badminton a little late at the age of 19. So it's clearly a great lesson that it's never too late to start. She's been playing for close to 7 to 8 years now. Her highest ranking, one of her accolades are her highest rankings in doubles has been 41st in India and 47th in mixed doubles. So we'd like to start off, Nigel and Nidhi. I'm just going to unmute you guys. Okay, Nigel's already on unmute. Hi, Nigel, if you can also turn on your video, right?
Hi.
Hi, Nidhi.
Hi.
Hi, Nigel. Nigel, if you can turn on your video. Yeah, okay, we see you. All right, great. So here are our experts, guys. Thank you so much for joining in, taking the time out on a Sunday, sharing a love for the sport, and sharing, what you've learned over the years.
Thank you.
So if you'd like to, to start off on what does badminton mean to you? A short line about badminton and what it means to you, and how much are you missing the sport in the lockdown?
Oh, badminton is almost everything to me. I've, I have the, I'm from a badminton family. My dad has been an international badminton player, so I've had badminton all through, like since I was a child. So
So it's a DNA thing more than a
something
passion.
like that. Something like that. Yeah. So I'm very passionate about it.
Awesome, great to know. And Nidhi, how about you?
I think to go get back on court. Feel like I'm forgetting everything.
Oh, So I think clearly you guys have to touch upon how do we not forget to play badminton? How do we still stay in touch with the sport, right? So diving straight in, speed and power, right? So if you have to define speed and power, how would you define it? Just laying a context for the audience out here.
So I would say power is something that is generated by a whole body, and it's something that comes from within. And obviously, you can train yourself to get to a certain level of power to increase your power. And speed is also something that you know that comes from within. Some people naturally have it. Some people train themselves. So
Right.
that's my take on speed.
Speed is basically related to quickness. It's how fast you would move, how fast you would probably hit a shot or think on court, or
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Meanwhile, I'll just put in just before we get back to the topic, some house rules. Please stay on mute. Everyone, turn off your video. Let's just allow the hosts to turn on the video and go off mute. And also, if you have any questions, please put in your questions in the chat. We will definitely address them. And because we have two experts, one in doubles, one in singles, you can ask specific questions related to singles and doubles, because I'm sure there's a big difference. Uh, Rather than raising your hands on the participant group, you can put in your questions directly on the chat room. All right. So, Nigel, you did bring upon speed when you said it's how fast you think on the court. Right?
Yeah.
So that was something that I thought I'll come and bring it in a little later. But since you addressed it already,
Okay.
let's talk about how quickly can you think? How do you train yourself to think that quickly?
Best experiences through practice or through matches. So basically, your experiences will make you think faster. The more experience you get by playing or by practicing is how basically you will be able to, uh, uh, put that into practice while put that into the scenario when you're in a match. So that comes with years of practice, and some people have got a quicker brain or they are a little more natural. So to them that comes naturally, but other people have to work on it.
I'd even say like learning from mistakes. Like once you make the same mistake again and again, you learn from it. Then you start to think in a correct fashion. So it helps you think quicker in that manner. So learning from your mistakes is quite important.
Okay. How does a coach know that you're not thinking quick enough? Like, it's um, it's a little hard for someone to know what's happening inside your brain, right? I know when I can see that you're not moving fast enough, but
Like, sorry, it's like your choice of shot also. It depends. Your coach can see that you're playing something that you shouldn't have. Like you're not thinking properly, or you're playing a shot without putting any thought into it. You're hitting it back to the same spot it came from, or it's very visible.
Right.
And even like how you execute it, basically where you're hitting it. I think that's one way a coach can tell.
Okay.
Nigel might have a different point of view.
No, so she's right, because there are certain basics or certain things that from an outside perspective, someone's watching. It's easier for them to, they will be able to pinpoint it, or sitting outside, you might think, oh no, I should have done this, but while you're playing, you may not, because of all the stresses of the game and all the the tension while playing, or your focus is on something else while you're playing. You won't see all aspects, and someone like a coach who's sitting outside will be able to observe it with a clearer mind, and then they'll be able to tell you that. That's when the coach notices that normally this one would have done this, but now in this scenario they have not done that.
Okay.
Easier for a coach to from outside pick on that, and coach playing with you every day, practicing with you every day, knows you in and out, or knows how you would
Your
normally.
style of play.
Yeah.
Okay. So clearly we need someone who can observe us, or you track yourself. Yeah? Okay. So let's come to physical speed and power, right? So there are clearly muscle groups that help us move faster and generate more power.
Yes.
So what I've heard is there are fast twitch muscles and slow twitch muscles, right? So can you just give us some insight on these two things, and what are more important? How can we work on improving our fast twitch muscles?
So, badminton basically is one game where you need both slow twitch and fast twitch muscles. So it is now modern badminton being a lot more explosive, and you need a lot more power and speed. We are moving towards what you say a game that you require more more fast twitch. So
Nigel, if you don't mind, can you just touch upon what fast twitch and slow twitch muscles would be?
okay, so fast twitch muscles help you do explosive activities, so like sprints or jumps, anything related to jumping, sprinting, quick bursts. So that those muscles will, those fibers, basically you require fast twitch muscles for those activities,
Right.
say powerful activities, or bursting or explosive activities. Whereas slow twitch, whatever endurance related activity you undertake, that is taken care of by the slow twitch muscle. So say badminton has a lot of jumping, or a lot of lunging, quick lunging bursts, or where you smash and you have to go to the net and tap. So all that is where you require fast twitch muscle. So a lot of matches you see where the players jumped, smashed, and has to come to the net, or attack the shuttle, tapped it, finished it, then again it's gone back, again he's gone back, jumped, hit. So that's where you require explosiveness. So that's why fast twitch muscles come.
Right. So you're talking about today's game, right? These days, the game has become a little more explosive. So yeah, if you can continue on that.
So, today's game is based a lot on, say, speed and power, which is our topic today. So basically, it's uh, trying to finish the point quickly, or playing attacking. Basically, playing attacking. One of the ways to play attacking is you hit, or you play downward and you try and catch the net faster, or basically outfox the outmaneuver the opponent because of your speed, or finish and get an opening and finish the point with your smash or with your power. So a lot of the training also nowadays is based, it has moved towards say speed related work, and power related work, or explosive related work, especially in doubles is one game where there is a lot more explosiveness than what is required in single. So yeah, so training also has to be done according to the type of game you're playing. So attacking players, or players, everyone's playing a similar type of game nowadays. But for that, everyone has to be fit and fast. So if my opponent is fast, I need to either be able to match him on speed. If not, then I will have to either work a way whether to how to cut his speed down or to negate his speed. So those are the those are the ways you got to work.
Nidhi, do you do any drills at home to improve your fast twitch muscles?
Yeah, so I do a lot of one-step movements. So just like I play shuttles we have 6 corners in badminton. So I play shuttles in each corner and just make very quick movements to them and back to the center. Quick movements back to the center. So that helps in being explosive in the beginning, moving and reacting quicker. Plus, since I have a little bit of space on my terrace, I do quick sprints, like 30-meter quick sprints, and those will helpfully help me maintain my speed on court.
Got it.
Those are the 2 drills I really do.
Okay, great. Clearly, drills that we can do at home too.
Yeah, if I may add,
Take too much space.
badminton, you require, what she said is that you require speed and speed endurance. So like you need to keep maintain that speed for a longer.
Nigel, can you just be a tad bit louder if you don't
Yeah,
mind?
so you require speed and speed endurance. So that's another important thing. So it's not explosiveness is required, but you also need to be able to maintain that level of speed, maintain that speed. So a lot of training nowadays we do is to speed endurance related. So you do, it's like middle distance running. Like if I have to give an example, it's like an 800 meters, 1500 meters. You got to be able to keep going at a particular speed, a good speed, for like, because a game will go on for 15 minutes. So you got to keep being able to maintain a speed for like 10-15 minutes at a time.
Right.
That would also include a lot of endurance training,
Right.
and interval training with that.
Interval training. So yeah, interval training is very, very, very essential to a badminton player's speed, to help him improve his speed. And
Right. Do you fight fire with fire? Let's say there's a person who's super fast and has great power. How do you negate it? Do you again generate more power to beat them, or how do you slow down their game?
so you're saying if the person is fast and powerful, or
Yeah, let's
yeah,
say he's a superhero.
yeah. So suppose the person is fast. So you have two options. Either you play faster than him, or you try and play faster than him. So you basically outpace him,
Right.
or then if you're not able to do that, then you try and if you're not able to match his speed or play faster than him, then you sort of get him to slow down. So to get him to slow down, you in badminton, what we would do is delay certain shots or play higher. Lift the shuttle higher. Don't make it uncomfortable for him. Don't let him play in his comfort zone and the speed that he's comfortable playing, which is faster than what you are able to. You bring him down to your speed or slower than your speed. So automatically he'll be a little more impatient. He will he will have to wait for the shuttle to come down to hit to a level where he will be able to hit, and that's when he's not now you're he's at a stage where he's not comfortable, so you will draw him into mistakes, or in that haste to try and play fast, so he will keep thinking, I need to maintain speed, I need to play fast. He's bound to make errors because he's now not in his natural environment.
Nigel, people are asking me that your voice is fading off. Just
Oh,
a
sorry,
little
sorry.
more louder, if you
This is the
don't
first
mind.
time I'm doing a Zoom call, so I'm not.
Yeah, sure, sure.
So
No worries. I can
um,
hear you. It's just that I got a few comments asking me
Yeah,
to.
yeah, I'll be louder. I'll be louder.
Sure. Yeah,
uh,
yeah. Please, sorry.
another thing is if the person is a attacking player, like wants to play with a lot of power, you should place the shuttle in such a way that he can't play those strokes. So keep the shuttle low. Basically, send it in positions where he's now forced to play the opposite game, a game that is now uncomfortable for him. So if I know someone keeps smashing, I'd keep the shuttle low. Bring him out of his comfort zone.
Right.
So that's also an important thing.
Like the best form of attack is defense. The best form of defense is attack. So
Right.
basically something like that.
Right. Cool. So let's coming back, right? So what I believe is I can improve my speed by improving my reactions, right? So I feel like I can improve my reaction by improving the anticipation. Where am I anticipating? What's your view on anticipation? Is increase in anticipation going to increase my speed on the court?
Uh,
Well, you
I mean, I don't necessarily agree that anticipation is equal to speed, because if you know, okay, if you have anticipated correctly, yeah, you will be there for sure. You'll know where it's coming. But anticipation is something that either you have or you can develop. I don't think improving your speed will improve anticipation, because you might be fast, but you might be fast at the wrong place. You might have to go somewhere else. So they're not exactly hand in hand. That's my take on it. And some people are naturally born with it. So they know that, okay, if I serve here, the returns are only going to come here. Or over time, serving again and again in the same spot, you observe, how people are returning the shot. So you know, okay, these are the places that will come. So it's something either you develop or you're born with. I don't think speed is going to increase your anticipation. Yeah. I don't know about Nigel.
so, to that, I'll just say that basically you can anticipate, say, in a game, 3 to 5 times, 3 to 5 points. So maybe you will get 3 to 5 points. You can't. The game consists of 21 points. You're
Just a
not
little
going to be
louder.
able to.
Sorry. Louder. Yeah.
Yeah, a little louder.
Oh,
Nigel.
sorry.
Yeah.
So anticipation you can do for, say, 3 points, 2 points, 3 points, 5 points. But to win a game, you need to. You're not going to be able to use anticipation for all 21 points. That's what I wanted to say.
So if you have to choose to be born with a superpower of anticipation or super speed, what would you choose?
Speed.
Oh,
You can't choose both.
can't choose both. Okay, since you took speed, I'll take anticipation.
I'll take speed.
Cool. Okay, we'll take a few questions from the audience. So we have Praveen who's asking us, how can we improve finger power?
Finger
I don't know if that's a thing, but finger power.
Wrist power?
He- so okay, his follow-up second.
Clarify what he means by finger power.
Yeah, can you just clarify, Praveen, what you mean by finger power? Okay, his second question is, do you try to generate maximum power from lower body during net kills, or rely more on speed and use finger power and placement instead?
So it's a combination of your lower body needs to be able to enable you to take you forward to the net, and it's also the speed of your racket, how fast you reach the shuttle. So that is very important. I'm not sure about what finger paw exactly means here. But I do know that your lower body and your upper body should move together. It's not either one. Your legs need to be strong enough to take you.
Okay.
So,
So finger power would mean wrist power in a way
I
in
think
your
he
context.
means when he says
that's,
finger paw, I think he means wrist paw. Yeah.
I think,
So what did he want to know? Sorry, what was the?
Yeah. So for when you're going for net kills, do you rely more on lower body power or your speed?
So okay, so for net kill, so basically if you're going to finish it at the net,
Yeah.
he probably is a doubles player. So he's talking about net kill. So
not
in
necessarily.
your lower body position, so your positioning, where so coming into the right position, and then you need your finger. Then for net kills, it's all upper body. It's all, as he said, the wrist part. I
Right.
would say wrist part. It's all
But
you. There's
to
less
take
time.
you at the net, also you
Finish.
require
Yeah.
to take you to the net, you require your legs to be strong, right? If you have to react really quickly, if you're saying mid court, you need to reach to the net. Your legs need to take you fast.
I said positioning, the
Combination of both.
positioning with your lower body, and then finishing it off with your upper body.
All right.
Yeah.
Taranath is asking us if you can throw some light on wrist power, right? How to improve and
Wrist power. So so for wrist power, the off court way. So by doing forearm curls, or with you fill a 1 kg weight, small weights, or a liter 1 liter bottle of water, half a liter bottle of water. You do the figure eight. The figure eight is a very
Yeah.
good way to. So that is for wrist power.
You can even take two rackets, put it together, and do a
Yeah,
figure
you
eight.
can do rackets or with a heavier racket if you all have squash rackets.
Great.
Tennis court.
Tennis rackets, squash rackets. You can do these actions where you're playing.
You're mimicking the action you'd use.
You're mimicking the action, so you work on that. Or even if you don't have tennis or squash rackets, you take your badminton racket also and stand there, and you can just make actions and swings, and that will backhand and forehand actions, which will help strengthen your forearms.
And even wall practice would help. If you have a wall available, just hitting the shuttle continuously on the wall will really help your wrist.
All right. Great. So if I'm sure speed and power go hand in hand. If you have to again choose one, what would you choose, and why would you choose that, and what's the advantage of your choice?
Okay. So, Nidhi, you want to go first?
So I would choose speed, because even if I don't have power, if I have the speed, at least I'll reach the shuttle, right? So if I don't have speed and I just have power, I might not even reach the shuttle, so there's no point. But if I have speed, I'm at least at the shuttle, behind the shuttle at every given point. So then I'll at least be in a position to hit the shuttle. It might not be as effective, but it's better than hitting a shuttle than not hitting the shuttle. So that's why I would choose speed. And I don't know about Nigel.
Yeah. So I was going to say the other way. If I had to choose, I would choose power, because speed is something I think speed is something I can build better than say power where badminton is concerned. So power in lifting weights and all you can build it, otherwise also, but where badminton is concerned, to transfer you build up your strength and then convert that into hitting power, it takes a lot more than it's a lot easier for me to build up speed than to build up power.
But it's like you can do the reverse. You can also build up your speed. It's not like you can't build up. The question is, what would you choose? What would you prefer?
I prefer to power. So it's easier to build up.
Grab some popcorn, guys. There's a debate going on here. All right. Cool. So, someone's asking us, how do I improve? How do I become light-footed on the court?
Okay, so in general, just not just during lockdown, in general.
In general.
Yeah. So, light-footed, well, you can do skipping. Skipping is a very good exercise to be, it helps you be on your toes. So being on your toes basically will help you be light-footed.
Right.
So skipping, then there are some agility drills, quick, as Nidhi said, short shadows,
Right.
one-step shadows. So, where you're doing one. So all these things, keeping a low center of gravity, all these things, will help you be light-footed.
Also, you should be on your toes. Whenever you're playing badminton, never be firm on the ground. Because if you do, you'll not be able to react. You won't be able to move. So always be on your toes. Be, in a bouncy kind of position. Never be stuck in one spot. So that way you'll be always on your toes. You'll be light. You'll be able to move quickly. So that's something very important. What we have seen, a lot of beginners, a lot of people who even play at the club level, they're very stuck. Like they're very locked in their feet. Their center of gravity is not low enough, and they're not on their toes. So that's something that can really help in moving around the court.
Okay. So everyone has a weak shot, right? It could be my overhead backhand shot. What any shot that there is. How do I work on improving that particular shot? And so is it off the court that I can do? Is it do I hit the gym, or do I work with just by rallying a lot more, practicing more? What works best?
I think to improve any shot or like any stroke, we say, it's very important to improve it on court. That's the best place. That's the best place where you can try and work on your weakness. Because since it is a badminton related, since it is a stroke, so the best place to work on it is to work on it on court.
And one other really important thing is, for example, if you're making a mistake on a particular shot, instead of trying to improve it on your own, if you get a bit of better advice or correct advice, that would be better. Because if you're going to keep practicing the wrong thing again and again, you're not going to really improve or play better. So, record yourself, ask someone, you try and see on your own, where you're contacting the shuttle, where you're making the mistake, or ask someone who's at a higher level to help you rectify it. Like, should I contact the shuttle earlier? Should I contact it before? That's also, quite important. So don't practice the wrong thing again and again.
Got it. Right. So we have Deepak who's asking us, so it's slightly off topic, but kind of connects back to strength and power. So he has some foot pain, right? And is it because he's choosing the wrong shoes, or is it probably because of a weak lower body?
He's getting pain in his foot, so ideally I would ask, like, where in his foot, and like, is it has it been? Yeah, was it there when his shoes were, say, when he had different pair of shoes? Was the pain the same?
He has been changing 3-4 pairs,
and still it's there.
Yeah.
So then it may not be the shoes. It would either be the way he's moving, so the footwork, maybe his footwork is incorrect, or his landing is incorrect.
Landing is important. How he's landing is very important.
Got it.
He should consult a physio, because that physio will be able to say maybe it's a muscle issue, so maybe some there's imbalance in the muscle, which is why there's pressure coming on the foot.
Okay.
Yeah.
Cool. We digressed a bit. Coming back. So would you suggest using a squash racket for wall practice? Would that improve?
Yeah, it would help, but you should progress, because the thing is, once you're using a squash racket, which is almost double the weight of a normal badminton racket, you're going to put a lot more strain on your muscles, your wrist muscles and all. So once you know the actions correctly, you're moving your muscles in a correct fashion, then you should switch to a squash racket. But just ease into it, I would say. Don't directly take the squash racket and start. So.
And to that, what I'll say, so suppose you do your swings with the squash racket. Say whatever swings you're doing, you do say 20, 30 swings with the squash racket. So before stopping, so you take your badminton racket and do about 10, 15 swings of the same shot that you practice with the badminton racket, because you're trying to convert. That is what basically it is. You're converting what you did there, the power. So the heavier racket swing, you're trying to convert that into quicker speed. So with your normal badminton racket, which is lighter, then you go and you practice that same swing, or whatever swing that was. So you practice it you're trying to convert that what you've just done, that training, into badminton related, into the speed that you would get while executing a shot in badminton.
Got it. Okay. So start slow and end slow too. That would be the right advice.
Yeah.
Okay. So Jeevan Kumar is asking us a question. So how can we improve fast walking in the court like Ling Dan rather than running in the court?
Oh.
Ling Dan is honestly very naturally talented. So, I mean, to get to his level is like world class.
Do you think there's a big aspect of anticipation there? which is why he's able to walk up to the court rather than run to the court?
He does have good anticipation skills, that's for sure.
He-
He's
walking.
very fluent in his movements on court. They're just very fluent movements, and on screen it can look like he's walking, but actually they are moving quite. They're not walking.
Right.
Yeah, I would.
Only when the shuttle is high would he maybe walk and go. Otherwise,
Yeah.
when quick, then he'll have to run.
But,
Yeah.
there's an interesting point there. Is he conserving his energy to
Yes.
generate all the power finally, or
He is. So from what Lindan was earlier, and now the way he plays, he basically was conserving, not straining too much, trying to conserve himself, his limbs and everything. So,
Right.
so if you see in the starting rounds of the tournament, he would be walking a little more, taking it easy and playing and
And his
managing to win.
opponents also much easier.
The moment
They
the
would-
rounds, sorry, the moment the opposition is tougher and all that, then you'd see him, actually moving and
Got it.
so that's
All right. So let's talk about a particular shot, right? Since we're talking about par, it'll obviously be the smash. So
Yeah.
what are the key things that you need to concentrate on when you're pushing all the momentum into the shuttle, into your smash? You could touch upon your how your body flows, the racket, your wrist, your footwork, everything. If you can just touch upon this, and Nigel, just be a little bit louder.
I will. Sorry. So for a smash, again the power comes, the main power comes from your core, from your stomach. So it's basically from the legs. So when we are doing a jump smash, or when we're going and hitting a jump smash, it's the power from the legs that goes to the core and then gets transferred into the shoulder and then out from the arm and the wrist. So basically, it's a combination. It's the whole movement, the combination of the entire cycle of that is what will give you a more powerful smash or harder smash. So basically, move behind the shuttle. Always move. You the best shot you'll be able to hit is always when you're behind the shuttle. So you're in a good position. So that then it is shoulder. So from the trunk, from the core, the power goes to the shoulder. Then from the shoulder, to the elbow part and out, and the wrist action, that snap is the last action that gives you that whip. So that is basically to hit a powerful smash or a hard smash. You need that hold the timing, and then the timing of
That's what
everything.
I was just going to say. The timing is the most important here. If you're really correctly behind the shuttle, you'll get that time to move every muscle in a correct fashion. Otherwise, you're just going to, like, if you're not there behind, you're just going to play a shot down. You need to convert it, like, get your body to move from back to front. For that, you need time. So, I would say that, to play a powerful game, you don't need to always smash. You need to be behind the shuttle at all times. You should never chase the shuttle.
Interesting. Okay. Sumit asks me an interesting question. Does the height of a player matter with respect to par or even your game?
Alright,
I mean, a taller player would be able to reach places faster because their limbs are longer.
Right.
But in terms of par, I don't know. He's way taller than me. He's like almost 6 foot. Maybe he can tell.
So it doesn't. So it will have an effect on the depth of your smash,
Mm-hmm.
right? But not on power, because there are so many short people. You see in doubles, you see Marcus Kido.
Most of the Asians are shorter on the shorter side.
All the Indonesians and Chinese, the doubles players, there are so many short ones, but they
Right.
hit very hard. There's no relation between
Height.
height and power. Yeah, the depth of your smash will change. Like a taller person will be able to hit it deeper, but not more powerfully than a shorter person. No.
Got it. So there was this question that I was about to ask, and Jagan has already asked us that. With more power, can lead to more muscle strain and injuries.
Yes.
Right.
Yes.
So how do I deal with this? Balance. How do I balance out injuries and power?
I would say don't misuse your power. Like, just because you have power, don't go for all powerful shots. Because you're going to keep straining out. If you keep smashing again and again, you're going to you can injure your rotator cuff, your shoulder blades. So don't misuse the power. Don't go for more power. Go for, think about your placement also. Don't just keep thinking about I need to hit it hard. Where you hit it, especially in a game of doubles, where you hit the smash is so important. You think about the placement also. Don't misuse your power.
So okay, I will also. She's right, because what you need to worry about is the timing. There are many people who get shoulder injuries because they, in that haste to hit a smash, they mistime it. It hits the frame. Hitting the frame puts there's a lot of shocks when the shuttle hits the frame. There are a lot of shocks that go to the elbow and go to the shoulder. So that is the cause of most injuries, where your shoulder suddenly starts paining, because you hit few incorrect shots, your elbow, you get a tennis elbow, or your shoulder starts hurting. So one thing is, yes, you don't overdo it. Hit, but don't go to hit too hard. Once in a way, when it's a weak return and you know that you need to kill it, go all out and hit it by all means. And the second thing is, to avoid injuries, is you train your muscles correctly, to strengthen it.
Condition.
Strengthening, training, stretching, very important to warm up well. Warm up is very underrated. There are many people I see at the club also. They come, they just change their shoes,
They're on call.
and they are on call. That is a recipe for disaster for where injuries are concerned. And stretching after playing is also, there are a lot of people don't do it. They just and finish playing and that's it. I just go. I have my shower, go. But stretching is also very essential because it takes care of it. It takes out all the lactic acid from that builds up in the muscle and all that. And I mean, through experience, I can say that when you stretch after a session, and then the next day when you have to practice, your body, it's so much easier to start playing and to open up, and your body is just there. It's just easier to play a recover for the next session if you do good cooling down and stretching.
Right. I think the audience should be leading the session because it's a very clean transition. The next question has already come up. My next question was about equipment, right? How does that affect your power? And yeah, your racket, your strings, your tension. So if you can throw some light on that.
Okay.
I just think equipment to a certain extent, will determine. That's a very small aspect of
1-2%.
Like again, heavy rackets will just help a little bit more in power, generating power than light rackets. But again, it really depends on how you trained your muscles and how you trained your body to be fast around the court. That matters. The equipment really plays a very small role in this.
Okay. So Praveen's asking a follow-up to that question is a heavy stiff frame or a flexible light weight frame? Is it balanced more for power or for accuracy?
No, I didn't get the.
I'll take that. So if Praveen wants power, he wants to, like, if he's looking for a racket which will help him like hit harder, or which will give him maximum power, then he should go for a stiff or extra stiff racket, because that is better for basically the downward strokes and all that. And if he wants better control, then he should go for a more flexible, I would say even balanced racket.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. And anything on the tension of the strings? I mean,
so if actually nowadays,
the higher the tension you put, I mean, you will get more control rather than power.
Yeah, that's true. So though nowadays so everyone, say in the national circuit, international circuit, they use tighter strings, say 30, 32. So that is because they're trained. They don't need that help with where so much, like, that 1% extra to 2% extra of power. They need better control. So you go for, when you want better control, you go for tighter strings. If you want a little more power, you go for little looser strings. So maybe nowadays you'd say 24, 25, 23, 24, 25. That will give you repulsion. So basically the trampoline effect, where the shuttle comes into the racket and is thrown. So that you get more power actually using light looser strings than tighter strings.
Got it. All right. What do you guys do off the court? What goes on your plate? What goes into your gymming sessions to increase power and to stay consistent?
So it's a number of things. We don't only do weight training. We do speed endurance training, interval training, and agility training combined, and obviously strength. So that's like a combination of all three. We take all aspects into consideration. Strength is important, but we don't do heavy weights. We do light weights, more reps. That's what a sports person needs. We're not lifting weights to bulk up.
Yeah, but we do go to the gym. Like we are in
Yeah,
the
we do have to go to the gym. That's important. Also, we do some freehand strengthening. Like, after a session, if we're not very tired, we take out maybe 15-20 minutes, do some push-ups, do some dips, some body weight exercise to again maintain our strength. And we do a lot of sprints and interval training. That really helps us last on court for endurance.
Yeah.
Endurance is important in a game of badminton because again, it's changed so much that people are always rallying. It's not necessary that you can finish a shot in a smash. People are learning to take it up. So keep playing. So you need a lot of endurance for that. So we're training ourselves for that as well.
And in
And
terms
by what goes on your plate, you meant
Nutrition?
food wise also nutrition.
Yeah.
So balanced diet, try and eat home food as much as possible. I would say before your game, eat, make sure that your meal has been light, or if you have a light snack, so then you won't feel heavy while playing. Say bananas are very good. Mainly food that will help maintain your energy levels. So if your energy levels are high, not automatically you'll be able to compete better, or reproduce that better on court. You'll be hydrated. You'll be fit. If you have a banana before playing, you'll get the carbohydrates, the instant energy that you require. If you have say oats in the morning, and then if you're going for your practice or your workout, or that will help you,
Sustain you for longer.
Yeah, sustain for a long period of time. So
But
yeah,
we do avoid like fried foods, basically that saturated oil, because that slows us down quite a bit. Forget just putting on weight; it just slows you down, your body, the digestion, and all goes. So we avoid fried food, oily food.
Great. Is there let's say I'm training for par. Like, should I be training with a feather shuttle or a plastic shuttle will also do?
it depends. If you want to spend a lot of money, and then go for the shuttles.
Deeper feather shuttle.
No, so the thing is, if you're just practicing to improve power, you can use a plastic shuttle. That's not, because that's going to sit. You're going to eventually hit one or two like wrong shots, and the feather shuttle will break. So yeah, if you're just practicing for power, you can go ahead and use plastic shuttle. That's not a problem. But or you can use just for smash power. You use smashing practice. You can use old shuttles also. So old feather shuttles, perfect.
It doesn't make that much of a difference which you use, basically.
Okay, good. All right. So we have another question. Yeah. So Praveen has another question, but I'd like to add to it before that. Is there a big difference when it comes to singles and doubles in terms of power and speed?
Power and speed.
I mean, in a doubles game, it's a quicker game. So people tend to play more downward strokes, more powerful strokes.
So Nidhi, then I'll ask you Praveen's question. Should there be a significant difference in training between a front court player and a back court player?
In what sense?
In terms of speed and power, right? Should the front court player have more speed? Is it okay if the back court player doesn't have enough speed? I mean, if I have to, choose one.
Both need to train the speed and power together. I mean, the same level. It's even if you're better at the net, there are times where you're going to be pushed at the back. So you need to be ready to move at the back, play at the back quick enough. If you're in a situation where you're controlling the back, you need to be able to move side to side very quickly. So I would say both have to prepare in such a way. And plus,
They both have to prepare equally. Yeah.
If you're a front court player, doesn't mean that you are not going to be at the back. There are times you're going to be at the back and your partner's in the front. So you can't decide that, okay, I'll only be in the front and my partner will only be at the back. You have to keep rotating.
You'll just be better at the front. So
Yeah.
ideally, in the ideal circumstance,
They set up the game in such a way that the person in the front gets the last say, basically. But you need to train equally. Not one can train better or less.
All right. So sorry, just taking a few steps back to nutrition. Do you guys take any supplements?
Uh,
One second.
on here,
Yeah, sorry. Do you guys take any supplements? To enhance your power.
we take just whey
whey
protein.
protein. Yeah. So we don't take many of the other supplements.
Or just maybe B12, just vitamin B12.
And your vitamin tablets, yeah, vitamin tablets, say vitamin B.
But you can take, BCAAs and stuff. That's not bad. But you need to be regularly playing or working out for that. Don't just take it like
Just
that.
like that, yeah.
The branched amino acids.
All right.
And again, that is going to contribute to say 1-2%. All these things are small, so they're just going to contribute a little bit.
Your training is the most important
Yeah.
aspect.
All right. I may not have, if we have questions, there are a few questions which are not related really to strength and power. Would you like to?
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah, sure.
See the one question about the tournament.
Yeah. So the question from Jeevan is, tournaments are always about mind game, being emotional, the crowd noise, a lot of distractions, right?
Yeah,
So
lots.
how do you handle all these aspects and play a better game?
So I'll tell you, I know it's like we both are very different in this. So from my perspective, also because in comparison to him, I'm a junior player, and he's a much more senior player. I feel like it's difficult to cut out the crowd and play your game. In my opinion, that puts a little bit of pressure, nervousness, tension while playing. So it is difficult. I tend to make mistakes because of that. But I feel like your mental game needs to be as strong as your physical game to be able to perform in a tournament. If they're not at par, you will lose. Even if you in practice you're playing very well, you're doing everything right. Mentally, if you're not strong to handle, all the other distractions outside, it can get to you. And I know Nigel is gonna have a very different perspective
Yeah.
on it.
So how you? I'll try and answer it like how given one like how you would go about it. So
Slightly louder, Nigel.
yeah, sorry. So it just like I don't know it the fear, say stage fright, stage fear of anxiety or performing fear of performing when there's a crowd and all. It was there earlier on in my career, but then it's just sort of as I kept playing, then what happens is you develop that concentration, that focus. Suddenly when you go on court, it's just the shuttle and you or the opponent and you. I'm able to blank out everything else, and just that time is just me playing. And if you notice with everyone, when even if they're nervous, there will be a point in the game where they don't notice the crowd, they don't notice, it's just, even if it is for a few points, they suddenly forget about everything because it's the whole stress of the whole stress of the match, the whole tension of the match and all that, where they're playing. Suddenly, while you're playing, or you're engrossed in the rally, you don't think of the crowd. So you got to maintain that, you got to get that concentration. So it's your level of concentration. If you're able to concentrate and focus solely on what you're doing right at that time, then the crowd and everything just becomes blank.
Awesome.
But this also takes a lot of experience. This comes with experience.
This
This
comes with
doesn't just come like that. And I have a fair amount of experience, not as much as him, but I've been able to cut out the crowd and this time, but not as much as he has been able to do it. Really, you have to be mentally strong for that. So you have to train your mind. You need to tell yourself there are going to be 100 people watching you no matter what. You just have to train yourself.
Awesome. So I think we on any closing notes, and also I think we've got to our next topic of mental training for the next week. I think that's a nice topic to
That's good.
touch upon.
So I'll just someone wanted to know how to get more speed and power in the backhand shots.
Backhand shots. Yeah.
Yeah, so I would say wall practice is the best way to. So that's how I learned, how I improved my backhand. Wall practice is the best way. So for backhand, so if you have a wall in where where he plays, and there's no one, like if he doesn't have 2 or 3 people to practice with, just take the shuttle and practice.
Or you can just go a little bit earlier and just keep practicing.
Yeah.
Just keep
Wall
hitting the
practice is
wall.
the best for your backhand.
With your backhand, just keep hitting high, low, flat. Just
Yeah.
keep all varying your strokes. Overhead also, just that's the best way to learn.
The lockdown is definitely going to result in a lot of dirty walls because of wall practice for sure.
Or you'll have learned to paint and repaint your walls.
Yeah, with the shuttle. So thank you so much, guys. This has been a wonderful session. Any closing notes on just power and speed? How you see power and speed? Where does it come in your game? Does accuracy come before, or does teamwork come before? So Nidhi, from your perspective of doubles, is where teamwork, I'm thinking.
Yeah. Teamwork is really important. Like even if you're not playing professionally, we're just playing for fun at the club. have good communication with your partner, and ask, like, talk about what his strengths and weaknesses are. Like, communicate a lot. That's important. And also, a lot of people I know just go on court and just play for the fun of the game. But if they really want to improve, to just do, take 10 minutes before playing to just do small drills. In the long run, they'll definitely see a difference. Like, do a little bit of ball practice, do a little bit of shadow drills. It will really help them play better. And then they might even, be encouraged to participate in local tournaments, which is a start. Like, to just,
Yep.
doing better and better. So that's what I would say.
Definitely.
I'll say one thing for power and speed. So for power and speed, the core is, just remember everyone, the core is very important. All the essence of power comes from your core. So work on your core strength. Practice a lot of smash swings if you want your smash to go faster, or you want to hit better. And where speed is concerned, you'll have to work on your speed by doing shadow practice, so court movements. You can do it, say, in intervals of 30 seconds or 20 seconds, 20 seconds break, 30 seconds, 30 seconds break. And yeah, that's the basic idea. So speed and power, that's in. And do strengthening regularly. Go to the gym, say twice or thrice a week.
Even own body weight strengthening
Body
can
weight strengthening
be very
also.
good. Just
Yeah. So right now in lockdown,
yeah.
body weight strengthening, resistance band strengthening.
Awesome.
Even a little bit of plyometrics or some dynamic training, like burpees and
Burpees, yeah.
jumping jacks. Those are really effective. I mean, we also do that on a regular basis to maintain.
Awesome. Great.
Someone was asking, will you show some exercises and shots? I would love to, but we need a court for that.
All right, we will see if we can incorporate this in the.
Yeah, we'll have to do it another time.
Thanks for the suggestion. Thank you so much, guys. So with great power comes great responsibility to win on the court. So thank you so much for sharing your insights and taking all your years of experience and sharing it with us and giving us your time on a Sunday. This session is recorded. We will post it on YouTube. And for the people who want it, we can share it with them. But this is an exclusive session. Only if you've attended the session is when you will get the link. And if you did love the session, please type in smashing in the comments to let people know that let Nigel and Nidhi know that they had a great session. So if you can get to typing smashing on the, yeah, there you go.
Welcome, everybody. Thanks a lot.
Thank you, everyone.
Yeah. Thank you. See you guys. Stay home, stay safe. Thank you, Nigel. Thank you, Nidhi. See you soon. Yeah, bye. Clearly, quite a few people typing and smashing out there. Thank you so much, guys. See you all soon. Bye-bye.